Hey guys, welcome to this very special episode of Hey China. The last idiom that we did was 指鹿为马, where I talked about this very evil eunuch and his name was Zhao Gao. And then Soybean here thought that it would be a great idea to do a special eunuch episode because he thinks he's kind of a eunuch expert around here. Eunuchs are basically men walking around with mutilated penises and they're sexually impotent. So they can serve as palace butlers or your concubine watchdogs. And finally, eunuchs can also serve as spies for the rulers. So you guys might have seen little tidbits of that in Varys from Game of Thrones, who's probably one of the most famous eunuchs on TV right now. Chinese emperors are very dominant. If they had a whole palace of concubines, they sure didn't want the concubines to be impregnated by anybody else. And the reason men had to have severed penises is so that they won't be able to reproduce. The emperors were so insecure that even their male relatives had to leave the palace before dark. And so all of the people on the imperial court, whether they were the emperor's advisors or historians, they were not able to live in the same confines as the emperor's concubines. So that makes sense, right? Because nobody should impregnate the concubines other than the emperor himself. In general, eunuchs were seen as non-threatening to the ruling dynasty, but in Chinese history, there are a couple of evil eunuchs, like Zhao Gao, as we mentioned in the previous episode, who, despite the fact that he wasn't able to reproduce, he was still able to throw the ruling dynasty into jeopardy. With that said, just because you don't have a penis doesn't mean you can't be the most powerful person in China at the time. Now, here to talk about how the castration process works is our castration expert.
That's probably the best title I've ever earned. Thank you. It's an honor to have you here in my own home.
We don't have much time because my camera's dying. So please tell us about castration.
So Emily told you all about the why of castration, but I'm here to describe a little bit of the nitty-gritty of it. And since we're talking about China specifically, I think one of the funniest things I've found is just that Chinese people, we don't do anything half-heartedly. We would take not only the testicles, but also cut off the penis, for which there's really no medical reason. As some of you may know, in the male body, the male sex hormones are produced by the testes. The penis doesn't actually make any hormones, so in theory, as we do today when people have certain kinds of cancer, we can literally remove their balls or stop them from functioning with medicine in order to treat their cancers. But in China, we said we would take the twig and the berries. So they paid special attention to sort of pain. They would numb up the penis and the testes before the procedure using this hot pepper water. And then it would take about 2 or 3 people to hold down the person. They would ask the person multiple times, are you ready for this? Are you okay with doing this? And if he showed any hesitancy at all, they would call it off. But once he was okay with it, they would take a very sharp knife and just in one fell swoop, cut off everything, as it were. And I think that's when things really got a little bit complicated, since you still had to make sure that urine could come out. So they would insert a thin tube and leave it there for 3 days and say, you can't drink any water, you can't go pee. And after 3 days, they would check. And if pee was coming out, then they would be good. If not, I think we would say that the procedure had not succeeded. But it sounds like there was really no way to fix it after that. They would just say, here you go. We can't really do anything for your pain. The Chinese had not excelled at pain management at that point. And 100 days later, they would say, you have fully healed. You're ready for your new role in the government.
Thank you, Dennis. Spoken like a true castration expert.
That's what they do call me.